All right, today we are going to be adding details onto our monster. So from the one that I started the other day, he kind of looks like this so far. I just added his horn, broke this one off because I thought that would be kind of fun. And now I'm going to think about all of the little things that are going to make my monster really creative. I still don't have anything on the back. He still doesn't have any texture, which is the surface feeling. And just all of the little interesting things that make it creative and fun and whimsical that I would want to impress my teacher. So here we go. First of all, let's think about the side and the back of the monster. So down the back, we have a couple of options for what we could do. Maybe you would want to add wings. So if you wanted to add wings, it would look something like this, where you're going to smash your clay really thin on your board, or you've got your little rolling pin that you could use. So you could potentially use the rolling pin. That'll ruin it. And just, this is my mini rolling pin, my pen. Wings, I think, should look pretty thin and delicate. So go ahead and roll that pretty thin if you want to do a wing. And then I like to do kind of, I don't know, some sort of interesting shape for my wing. And you might even from there want to thin it out just a little bit more. And then the nice thing about making them out of clay is you want to do some movement. So just kind of fold your edges so it actually looks like there's some movement happening with the wing. So for this guy, I could probably score and slip that right onto the back of him. So I'd score up my wing, score up my body, a little bit of water, and attach that on there really well. And just so you know, this particular wing is going to be very fragile. So you definitely want to be careful putting that into your bag. Keep it damp if you're going to bring it to school. Otherwise, once that starts drying, that's just going to, if you bump it, it's going to break right off. Okay, so that's one wing. So that's an option for what to do on the back of your monster. Or it could go on the side. Another idea, which I always like down the back, are more spikes. So you might think about adding a couple of spikes down the back of your monster. So again, I would just open up some holes and then use my little tiny spike of clay, score, slip, and seal that in there. So I just dipped my horn in water, scratch up the inside of that, scratch up my horn, and pop it into that hole. And if you wanted the hole to look a little bit more jagged, where maybe like the horn is really sticking straight out of it, then open it up a little bit further and kind of pinch the edges of that just to make it have kind of that more jagged feel to it. And that's pretty similar to what we saw with some of the examples from James DeRosa. So it has more of this kind of rough edge rather than a smooth, straight edge on it. Okay, so that is maybe an option for a spike going down the back, so maybe 3 spikes. I have a hole in the head of this guy, and that would be for a found object. So maybe I wanted to use a screw or a marble maybe, in which case I would want to, if this was a screw, which I don't have one with me right now, if this was a screw, I would want to really wiggle that opening because our clay shrinks about 15% when it goes through the kiln. So make it bigger than what your object is that you're going to put in there. Okay, so that would be the hole, that would be where I'd put a screw, glue it in after it's been fired. So that's another option. Okay, so the next thing we'd want to do is start thinking about all of the little things. So I did say that in your criteria for the project, you have to have texture. So texture is a surface feeling. Right now my clay is very smooth. So this is where I want to start adding some of that interesting surface to my monster. So here's a couple of options. One, this is the ballpoint pen, and I've been using this for everything, so it's got a lot of clay on it. So it's got kind of just a dot at the end. So I like using this. I think it makes fun little, I don't know, they look a little bit like warts. So maybe you could do something that looks like that by using the end of a pen and just kind of go around the whole surface of your monster. If you have an unsharpened pencil, the end of an unsharpened pencil has a hexagon. So you could use that shape to create little hexagons on your monster. Just the end of a regular pencil, if you do that, they look more like freckles. So maybe I could put some little tiny dots up here on his lip area. So then he's just got these little freckles in that area. Okay, so that's another option. One other fun idea that I like doing is something that's more, like fur. So this guy, I think, is begging for some eyebrow. So I'm gonna put an eyebrow right over the top of his eyes, just because that area still seems really empty to me. So I rolled out a coil, cut it so it's nice and thin, so something like that. And now I'm gonna shape it. I can also give this guy some good expression with this eyebrow. Okay, so there's my eyebrow area. And you might be like, that's not that exciting yet, Miss Erickson, but just wait. So I'm gonna score and slip that on here. And then I'm gonna add the texture so it actually looks like a big furry eyebrow. So really press that in, score slip, and then remember seal is when you go around the edge of your piece with a wood tool or a paintbrush to really make sure that piece of clay is gonna stay attached. All right, so now anywhere that I wanna add like hairy, furry texture, you're gonna use your pen tool and just start scratching that up and kind of fluffing it as you go. Okay, so there's my first hairy eyebrow. I gotta look at it from the other side. Here's my second one. So just really kind of scruffing up that clay with your pen tool. So now I've got texture. So you can see how much the eyebrows really stand out against the smoother clay in the background. I love doing that. I think it's super fun and it really adds a lot of personality to the creature. You could do that down here too if you wanted to have kind of, I don't know, like little furry caps on the leg a little bit. So maybe that's an option around one of the legs, just again for some contrast, so the difference between the smooth and the textured area. Another idea for what you could do down here, if you did some of those loops around the legs, you could do this little texture pattern, which I also really like, that ballpoint pen, so kind of some polka dots. You could come down to the feet and add some toes. Oops. Okay, so just all of those little things with the texture, all of these fine details at the end are what is gonna make your monster look really good. When you turn this guy in, you're gonna take a picture from each side. So from the front, from the side, and from the back. So I'm gonna wanna be able to see that you've added lots of interesting characteristics to your monster and that it's really well developed from all the different angles. So if I were to look at the back of your monster and not see anything back here, you're not gonna score well on that part where it says, does your creature have that three-dimensional or all the way around feeling to it? Okay, so ideally, when we're turning these guys around, you see something really interesting on all the different sides of your monster. All right, so that's gonna be the finishing details, adding all that fun stuff at the end, making sure it looks really good, and lots of texture, little funky things. Feel free to add other things too, like a bow tie or a briefcase. You can put arms on the side, anything that you think will really make your monster look fun and personalized at the end. All right, so there's that guy. This is his buddy. This one's already been fired, so big tongue coming out of that one. I used the pen tool to fluff up his fur here. I did it around his little spiral horns. I gave him a unibrow. You know, so lots of fun characteristics on this guy as well. All right, you can add a tail. This one has a tail, so you can kind of see the spikes go down the back and the tail wraps around the body. If you want to add a tail, you don't want to just leave it sticking straight out from the body because it will likely snap off when it dries. So if you're going to add something like that, make sure you keep it tucked really tight onto the body. And then finally, this guy, he has arms, okay, and he has like these little claw hands. So if you would want to do something like that, I actually just look up a monster arm or a human arm and try to shape it based on the actual characteristics of an arm. So give it more of this 90-degree angle here instead of just like a noodle arm. Unless you want a noodle arm, that one actually looks a little muscly, okay? So lots of different fun characteristics that you can try out for all of your monster ideas. All right, good luck and have fun.